rather have Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson?
Lamar Jackson.
You're looking at possibly fight of the year there.
Adam loves talking shit, and just like other Eagles fans, he loves eating shit. Oral Roberts plus 15.5.
Double Jack and Coke.
And I was
whatever we can get our hands on, we were drinking it.
Hooting and hollering all kinds of profanities and ruining the experience of the people around me. Welcome to Right Hand, Left Hand. It is our first of two episodes this week. Today is Thursday, May 20th, 2021. So be on the lookout for another episode with Keith K.O. Kid Barry tomorrow. But first, we are going to talk to one of my good friends, Emmanuel Ribeiro. We're going to talk a little bit of Brazilian martial arts culture. And he is going to gloat about his guy, Charles Oliveira's victory over Michael Chandler's unfortunate defeat that lost me some money at UFC 262 last weekend.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We're going to talk some spearfishing and some crazy story about a jaguar hunting.
Right now, we welcome in a good friend of mine who I'm happy to have on the show, Emmanuel Ribeiro. Emmanuel is a colleague of mine in Oklahoma, a fellow biologist, for those of you who don't know what I do for a living. And he does some really cool work with saltwater fish. I do want to ask you for some stories from your research a little later on. We'll get to that, but I know you're here first and foremost to rub in my face the result of UFC 262, where Charles Oliveira, your guy, finished my guy Michael Chandler in the second round. I think Josh also picked Oliveira last week on the show, so Chandler really led me on. Chandler really led me on in the first round. I know you didn't get the chance to watch it live. I'm not sure if you've had the chance to rewatch the whole fight yet, Emmanuel, but how impressed were you with Oliveira, and how nervous would you have been in that first round if you had been watching it live?
Yeah, I have to say that I need to listen to Josh more frequent, I guess.
Right.
Putting your money on fights. I wouldn't say the result wasn't expected, but mostly how Oliveira got to strike so efficiently, it kind of surprised me. I did watch the fight the day after, and I was just really impressed on how precise Oliveira was on his strikes. I was expecting him to bring the fight to the floor, to the ground, and use the guillotine as he frequently does. But I guess finishing that fight with as a striker would bring him even as a stronger contender, and I hope he can hold that belt for a little bit at least.
Yeah, I could agree with you, man, because I've watched Charles Oliveira since the beginning. I think that's like his 28th fight under the Zuffa banner. So I mean, it's just impressive. When watching him when he was fighting at featherweight and then moving up to lightweight, you can really tell that making that featherweight cut was really. It was a big difference in his factor in his cardio, and he was just hasn't been the same fighter where in past he would essentially give up. If like what happened to him in that first round, he's not recovering. That's not happening again. He's not pulling guard. He's not showing the heart of a champion like he did on Saturday, and he really, really impressed me. And it's going to be interesting to see who he fights next. A lot of people are talking about Dustin and Conor winner. I think, Dustin definitely deserves that fight over anybody for sure if he beats Conor.
I mean, it's got to be, right? Like, it's basically a couple of semifinals. Actually, they have already released odds for both those matchups, and Oliveira is an underdog in either event, apparently, which I think is a little bit insulting because he looks so good. And I mean, I could definitely see why he would be an underdog against Poirier, but McGregor hadn't done anything special lately.
Yeah, I think he submits Conor. Even though I'm a huge Conor guy, I think he still makes him tap, just like Khabib did, essentially.
Yeah, Conor likes beating Brazilians, so I'm kind of scared about that.
That's true. That's true with Aldo. It was kind of reminiscent of Aldo running in the crowd when after Charles Oliveira won.
Yeah,
when he knocked out Chad Mendes in Brazil.
Yeah, kind of remind me that too. But I feel that Oliveira is kind of a more complete fighter.
Great.
He's so good on the ground. It's just impressive. If you watch, like I sent Jonathan a compilation of the way he finalized people. I just like, it's impressive.
Oh, you don't want to go on the ground with him. That's what made it even more impressive, the way Chandler got up.
Yeah, in
from
the
that.
first round. Yeah, he looked like he was in serious danger, and then he recovered so well in the second round. I was like, man, I've got this. He's going to come out in the second round and maybe get a finish. And man, he took that one shot from Oliveira on the feet, and it was all over after that. Man, you could just see it in his eyes. He couldn't, he staggered around over there, and not as crazy as the Shane Burgos knockout. That was pretty wild too, where the guy just like stood there. I sent that to you, where he just stood there and sort of wandered back. And it's crazy too, because Oliveira's only 31 years old. Like you said, he's got 28 fights. I couldn't believe it when I read that. I figured he had to be at least like 33, 34 years old. And so if he can get past whoever comes out of this Poirier and Conor McGregor fight, he could hang on to the belt for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but Charles is like a Max Holloway in a sense. They've been doing it for so long. Max started when he was 20. I'm pretty sure Oliveira is the same way.
Mm-hmm. Well, they start him young in Brazil. So I actually wanted to ask Emmanuel a little bit about that too, because you obviously are from Brazil. That's, a huge part of the reason why we have you here talking about this particular fight, because you and me always like to talk smack back and forth a little bit when the Brazilians and the Americans fight each other. So y'all got the best of us this round. So obviously the main sort of national sport in Brazil is soccer, is football. But that's right. He's wearing the shirt he's representing right now. But where does like martial arts, and I guess it's probably mostly jiu-jitsu, I would assume, because that's sort of like what the nation is known for in the martial arts world, right? You have these different regions that are known for different styles. And so I guess my question is how much does martial arts sort of permeate into the culture? Because you see this sweet parade that they threw for Oliveira when he returned home, where he's standing on the fire truck and everybody's going nuts, and they got motorcycles in the streets. So how much like sort of integrated into the culture is the sport down there?
It is very strong. I think that the Brazilian history of martial arts starts very early with capoeira. So capoeira is another passion for us there. But I guess since the Gracie family brought jiu-jitsu, the Japanese jiu-jitsu, and started adapting to the Brazilian style, that's when the MMA history started to develop in Brazil, right? After that, back in the 80s, 90s, it wasn't a very welcome, I think, environment. It was a very testosterone heavy, and the gyms were, as you can expect very involved in polemical fights in the street, until people recognized the value of the sport, I guess, and it became a national passion. So probably after soccer, MMA would be the sport that would get more people together to watch fights, for example. So it is probably the second most popular sport in Brazil nowadays, I would say. And you can see that transformation, because I used to practice Muay Thai and a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu and MMA when I was a teenager. But back in that time, it wasn't so friendly, The gyms weren't such a friendly environment. But nowadays, I look at Instagram and I see girls that were a friend of mine during mid-school, they're all practicing Muay Thai and MMA. So it's a very welcoming sport nowadays, I would say. And I hope it gets more and more popular, because you're going to see younger fighters coming more frequent. And I hope we don't have like a gap from Anderson Silva until the next wave of good fighters from Brazil.
You guys got Jose Aldo, even though he's kind of on the tail end of his career. You got Charles Oliveira. You got all the Nogueira brothers back in the day. And you've got one of the best camps out there in Shooter Box as well. Those guys, they really beat each other up in that gym too.
Yeah, I think right now I have four belts. Amanda has 2 belts, and Figueiredo and Oliveira now.
Yeah, how could we forget about Amanda? I mean, really.
So I think it's a good number for Brazil as a country, number of belts holding. But yeah, I was just afraid to see a gap, because there was like, before Figueiredo and Charles Oliveira, there was a little, right, a gap on for Brazilian fighters there.
Yeah, I
But
really thought Marlon
back.
Moraes was going to be something for you guys too.
Yeah,
Another one.
yeah, but not so impressive nowadays. Yeah, so yeah, I hope that just like new fighters start coming back and showing up and beating Americans.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about that. You know, Brazil's full of killers in there, man. They just seem to turn them just like as much as anybody else, just as any Americans come out of for the UFC as well. So I mean, I'm trying to think if we have anybody else right now at the top up there for you guys.
I like
off the top of my head.
I like Michelle Pereira, who like the guy who does the like
That's that capoeira.
cartwheels and the
Yeah.
Because I always
He's a
thought like
comment.
isn't capoeira more of like a
It's like a dance fighting.
yeah, it's more on the arts side than the martial side, right? So I
Yeah,
just
it can
think
be
it's
dangerous.
well,
It
I
can.
mean, you get a nutcase like that, it sure can. But I love him. He's just so crazy. I love that guy. But so we've covered two of the things that Brazil is really known for in soccer and martial arts, and I want to sort of pivot away from that because we do talk a lot of sports here. But you are a biologist, just like myself, and one of the other things, I guess I would say two other things I think of when I think of Brazil are both related to nature. You have the Amazon rainforest and the river, right? Obviously, there's much more to Brazil than just the rainforest, but you know that's sort of the iconic sort of landscape that people from around the world think of when they think of Brazil. And then the other thing is the beautiful beaches and the beautiful oceans. You study saltwater fish, so you previously worked at the University of Puerto Rico, and then your lab group moved to Oklahoma, and so that's how you and I know each other. And I'm wondering just if you could describe sort of to the viewer, the listener who doesn't have any idea what going out and being a marine biologist and collecting these fish samples, what that looks like on a day-to-day basis when you're in the field collecting samples.
So you can pretty much explain it to me because I have
Right.
no clue.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I think I can spend the whole night talking about that. Going to the field is probably the fun part of the work, right? So the work we develop in the lab, we have one component that's going to the field and spear fishing, do some spear fishing, bring the samples back to the lab, extract some DNA, sequence genomes. And after that, so that the lab work would be the second component, and the third component is bioinformatics, which is very heavy too, just analyzing all those genomes. But yeah, fishing is the fun part of it. And before going to Puerto Rico, I did my master's in the Amazon, so I have that experience with freshwater fish, and then I moved to marine fish. And yeah, there are a lot of funny stories about fishing. Snorkeling at night in the Amazon.
I bet that's kind of scary in the Amazon.
It is. Yeah, being followed by a jaguar.
Wait! What happened with that? You gotta tell us.
I never saw the jaguar in person, but so we were sampling in this area of the Amazon. It's a very remote area. We would go in a big expedition with people sampling all groups of vertebrates, so people doing research with mammals, with herbs, frogs, and snakes, and fish too. So I was one of the people in charge of the fish group, and we went sampling in a small river, and on that trail, people working with mammals, they set some camera traps, the same device that hunters use here in the US, right, to spot deer and whatever.
Right.
And I was walking with my friend, and when I got back to the boat, everything was okay. And next day, the dude was looking at the camera trap photos, and he realized that there was a Pantera onca, a jaguar, following us for the whole time, you know. So these animals are just they sense they were there, and they realize you're there, and they just go around you, and you don't even know that they are there.
So was it like you saw yourselves on the camera trap, and then a couple of
and
minutes
after
later
2
you
minutes,
saw...
Wow.
yeah, the jaguar would pass, and sometimes a little bit in front of us, and you pass 2 minutes after. You're just like surrounding us and giving turns without
God.
realizing.
That's wild.
Yeah. And if we're talking about marine fish and diving, I guess the best experience happening in Galapagos. We dove in this place in Galapagos, which are the Darwin and Wolf Islands, which are the Galapagos archipelago. Those islands are the ones they're the north part of Galapagos, very, very remote. And apparently it's the place in the world with the highest density of sharks. So, and you're down there spearing fish, right? So there's blood in the water, and sharks get very close, and in a couple of times you need to get out of go back to back with our buddies, diving buddies, and with our spears, making sure that wouldn't be attacked from behind. But some of the times you couldn't manage that, you need to get out of the water. So those are probably the scariest things that happen when diving.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, they got very close, and I wasn't so scared because Galapagos, there's so much food for them. They wouldn't get so aggressive, but sometimes they would get very close, which is awesome. Something that I'm gonna take with me forever. But yeah, now we can laugh about it, but
yeah, maybe not something you want to do every week.
What kind of sharks were they? If you do know, or
they are Galapagos shark. So there is a one species that goes. There's a kind of a triangle, island triangle. There is Cocos Island, Galapagos, and another island in Colombia. That those sharks just keep migrating along this triangle. And Darwin Wolf is the first island when they're getting back from the open ocean. When they're getting to Galapagos, this is the first place they visit, right? Because it's right in the north. So they're hungry.
Yeah.
And there's not much food in the open water. So they get to Galapagos to get some food. So that makes it a little bit dangerous, but it's an amazing place. There is the Darwin Arch actually broke down yesterday. So there was an arch there. The middle part just broke, and now I have like two big pillars, but you can't call it arch anymore. But when you dive there and you just go to sink to the bottom, and there's a platform, and you can just put your knees on the floor and see like hundreds and hundreds of hammerheads passing by.
Oh wow.
wow.
And if you can hold your breath a little bit and stop making bubbles and noise, they will get very, very close to you. So it's one of the...
Those are big sharks too.
Yeah.
Hammerheads.
They're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So when you're holding your breath like that, so that when they have the bubbles, I guess they don't come near you as much. Is that what you're saying?
Hammerheads, yeah. I think hammerheads are kind of they don't like close contact. There are some species that do, but hammerheads they don't. So
That's
one way to bring them closer is just like hold your breath, and they would come close to you, and you see them from very close.
That's awesome. And then when you do all your fishing, you do just strictly spearfishing. You don't do any with a line or anything.
Sometimes yes, because there are some species that you can't get close enough to spear them. So you need to find other ways to fish them, and hook and line and other methods. But the fun one is spearfishing. I like shooting them.
Go ahead, John.
So do the sharks ever try and steal the fish off of your spear, or like a predatory fish try and steal it?
They do, yeah. Sometimes you need to not spear the shark, but turn your spear around and hit them in the nose with the back of the gun.
Get out of here.
They just go away. But they get close to get the fish. So it has happened with a friend of mine that he needed to give the bag full of fish to the shark because it was just too close.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, do you do just around the coast, or do y'all do any like out in the ocean, like out in the open waters, essentially?
Yeah, most of the diversity is with the close to the reefs, right? To the shallow waters. So we spend most of the time there. But sometimes, not me. I don't really work with pelagic fish. I don't go hunting them. But people go with big guns to hunt those fishes. But it's just like the time that you spend to catch 30 fish in the shallow waters, you take that time to catch maybe one fish in the open waters. So there's probably better ways to sample them with hook and line, for example, right? Mm-hmm. People do it for fun and for the hunting experience, but it's not as efficient as hook and line, I would say. Yeah, once I spent 1 month with a tuna, living in a tuna boat in the coast of Brazil, and it was one of amazing experience. So just like all kinds of fish that would come on the line, and not only tunas, you'd see many species of shark, and you see swordfishes and other stuff coming to the boat. So it's very pleasant. It's always good to be there.
Emmanuel, thanks for being on with us, man. Those are some really good stories. At this rate, we're gonna have to turn this into a fishing podcast. So
I won't be mad at that either. I mean, if we want to talk a little fishing, that'd be cool with me.
Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to promote, or do you want to throw your social media handles out there?
Yeah, if you go to I do have an Instagram. I don't really enjoy
Instagram.
Twitter, but if you go there, you're gonna see mostly cycling stuff. So it's Emmanuel Ribeiro. Can maybe put in the comments there. If you wanna see some cycling stuff in Oklahoma, I post some fun videos and photos there.
All right, we'll put that in the description for the video. Go ahead and follow Emmanuel on Instagram for all your cycling needs. And hey, maybe we'll have you back on to talk Tour de France or something later on. Thanks for being on with us, man.
I'll be happy with that. You should keep that background.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Follow us on social media at RHLH Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and keep an eye out for new content on Facebook and YouTube every Thursday and Friday.